What's up guys, Smash Connoisseur here, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about Acola and why he is so good at Smash Ultimate. Acola is a Japanese player from the Hyogo Prefecture, and he is very young at the age of only 17. Acola and I are actually only a day apart, so we're very close in age, but I am a day older, so I would know a lot better than him. An interesting thing about Acola is ever since he began playing Smash Ultimate offline, he was always very, very good at the game. An interesting statistic is that within his first 5 tournaments, he had only done 5 tournaments in his whole career, his placements, and these were big Japanese tournaments, his placements were first, second, and first. So he was kind of really good since the get-go. And, a lot of people commented like 4 out of 5 of his first tournaments he won, and the only one he didn't win, he got second. Like, second was his worst placement. That's really, like, not heard of. But I think that kind of went to show that this is no ordinary kind of player. And we would see that leading into future events. Since he had been doing so well at these tournaments, he was actually invited as one of the players who would get to go to Gimmer's event at the time, the Invitational, which he announced right after having showed the tech known as the slingshot, and a lot of people were really excited about that. So he was like, why not throw a tournament to just see like if people use it, and also just because people like invitational tournaments. And this one was a massive success as well. One of my favorite tournaments for sure. Well, the Invitational ends up taking place, and it's a very, very shocking event. A lot of things happen that people did not expect at all. For one, the rank 2 player in the world at the time, Spargo, who was just being so dominant and destroying everybody, ended up getting 7th place at the event, which was, I think, the worst placement that he had gotten up until that point post-quarantine. So it was like a crazy event for him, and he actually ended up taking a break after that. Light beats Riddles, and he makes it to Grand Finals to fight against Acola, and it was actually a really interesting Grand Finals. People really wanted to see, like, could anybody stop this kid? Like, maybe he is as good as we all imagined. The set had a very interesting outcome because the set went 3-1. Acola beat Light 3-1. But the one game that Light won, he 3-stocked Acola. So I'm not sure why that happened. Like, he 3-stocked him one game and then he just lost the next game. But, still proud of him. But that was Acola's first United States tournament, and it was over very top level players, and he won the whole thing. Now people are like, maybe Spargo would have beat him. We don't know, because they didn't end up playing, but they would go on to play in the future. Well, anyways, fast forward to a tournament in August. This is all happening around June of 2022. Well, for the next 2 months leading up to August, Acola would just go on to keep winning in Japan, but he didn't go into the US during that whole time. While in August, he doesn't go to the US, but there is a very, very large tournament that happens in the US. This tournament obviously being called Super Smash Con. This is still while Spargo is on his break, but many of the top players were in attendance at this tournament. It was massive, like, it was insane. And as maybe you've seen in my last video, a player named Onin was really thriving at the tournament, and he was just dominating everybody. 3-0s MK Leo, destroys Meister, the confetti falls for no reason. It was a really silly tournament. But afterwards, people were like, maybe Acola isn't the best Steve. I remember on Tweak Talks they were saying, like, I think it's pretty safe to say Onin is the best Steve now. Well, that didn't end up being the case. You see, Acola's next 3 tournaments that he went to were all in the US back to back to back, and he did well at every single one. First, Smash Summit 5. Acola gets top 4 at the whole tournament, which is very crazy because players like MK only got 7th place in the tournament. And so that just goes to show, really how crazy that tournament is. But into the next tournament, he gets 2nd place at the Ludwig Smash Invitational, another insanely huge tournament. And then he gets 1st place at Let's Make Moves Miami, which just shows not just is he doing well in all these tournaments, but he's literally got an uptrend in terms of, his stock in these tournaments. He's literally going up. After these very significant American placements, he would continue to do well in the West and back home in Japan for the following months, which was really, I think, what made him go on to be ranked number 1 on the Lumi rank that season. And he would go on to continue to be ranked number 1 even on the most recent Lumi rank that just came out 5 months ago. And, in a month, they will release their next one, and I don't think any of us will be surprised if he's number 1 on that one as well. And so I guess the real question is, what makes him so good? Okay, now, as far as what makes him so good, I have a couple of things that I think all kind of culminate in his ability to just have such a dominant reign over the entire world of Smash, because it seems like wherever he travels, he just doesn't seem to really lose very often, and I have reasons why that is. Okay, my first reason is obviously the elephant in the room. He plays Steve. So his character, Steve, is the best character in the game, not that close, and just a really, really good character. So people who play that character tend to have, maybe better results than those who don't. But I also think that we can't fully credit it to Steve because, he also has had success with other characters, and, he's played Pyra and Mithra, he's played Kazuya, he's played Luigi, he's picked up a ton of characters for his bad matchups or other things, and he's been able to also defeat many other Steves. Like at Let's Make Moves Miami, he beat Onin 6-0. He destroyed him. Just like, they shouldn't have even been allowed to show that online because it should be, a crime what he did to him. But, that's just to say that while his results go up, not all other Steves do the same. Onin was not as consistent as him. Other Steves like Jake or Yanni did not do as well in tournaments as him. And even newer Steve players like Syrup have not, just been winning every tournament they go to. Although they'll do well, there are levels to this. And there's something about his Steve that makes it better, but I do think the character is part of the reason. Okay, my second reason is actually a pretty unique thing that I think not everybody thinks about, and it's the fact that he has had a lot of online practice. Now, during the quarantine, Smash was primarily played online, which was about a 1.5 to 2 year period, and certain players like MK who was the best pre-quarantine, had their results really plummet during this time because their characters just didn't do well online, or they just didn't want to play online. I remember Light said he would never play online, and like it was for scrubs or something like that. And, when you look at Acola playing Steve, Steve does really well online. I would say he's just as good online as he is offline. So he gets a lot of really good practice in there, and I think he was number 1 on Smashmate, which is like the Japanese online ranking system. So he was grinding the game a lot online, and if you look at a lot of these newer and younger players of the game, a lot of them say that when they came up, they were really playing a lot of online, and they're able to be so good because they practice so much out of tournament and with these very unique matchups. Because you're not always going to play, a Toon Link offline, but you can get practice for it just on Elite Smash when you can't do the same, at like Genesis or something like that. So I think that is definitely part of the reason he's so successful, is because he's familiar probably with a lot more matchups than most people. The third reason that I think he's so successful kind of ties into the reason that I was last describing, which is the fact that he's so young. And I think as a young player, you kind of have less responsibilities because, you know, you don't maybe have a job or something like that. So you can dedicate a lot of time to actually playing the game and practicing. And that really also gives you a ton of time to be able to, you know, enhance your abilities. And you just have some innate skills that maybe an older player like an MKLeo will have lost with time. Like your reaction time is just insane because you're so spry and, you know, you haven't aged at all, you know. So I think that is an advantage that these young players like Acola or Spargo or, you know, Syrup might have, which is that they just are so young that they're really in pristine shape to be able to play this game at a top level. Another thing that top players tend to mention about being young is that younger players typically are nowhere near as scared as the older ones. Like, they talk about Light a lot of the time, and they're like, Light just plays like, you know, he's never been hurt in his life. And that's how a lot of the young players play as well, because, you know, they probably haven't had as many, you know, near winning losses and things like that, where they're like about to take it and they lose because they make a critical error. It probably hasn't happened as much, so that's why you'll see players like Zomba just throw out back air randomly, or Acola just throw out Steve F smash. Also probably just because it's a broken move. But I think that is part of it, is they're just less scared, so they're less predictable as well. Reason number 4 for why I think Acola is such an enigma in the tournament space is the fact that he lives in Japan, which many people probably know is like the most dominant region of Smash. And they're a very, very strong region, and I think to be able to get practice in Japan every day is really going to rise your skill level up, because even like the most mid-average Japanese players are like actually very good. They'd be considered like around the level of like a high-level player here in the US. And that's something that, you know, really allows a player to grow their skill level a lot quicker, is being able to play with a bunch of good players. And another thing with Japan is, since it's a lot smaller than the US, public transportation is a lot better. So you're able to play with a lot of top players very, very often, because like even at your local tournament, you just might have like Shukan and Umeki there just to practice with you. So it really allows you to stay very good because you're practicing with very good people at all times. So that's another reason why I think Acola might be so good. Now for my 5th and final reason, I think it might just be coming down to one thing, which is the fact that Acola just has very, very good game plans. Now, most of the time when you have a Smash player, they will have like a plan A, and then once they're pretty good, they'll have a plan B. So if they're trying their, you know, main thing they're trying to do and it's just not working, they have something they can switch to counter whatever counters it. And then if they're really good, they got a plan C, which is the, you know, the 3rd layer of this rock, paper, scissors game. I feel like Acola has the entire alphabet, because it just seems like he's really got a lot of game plans and a lot of tricks that it takes people so long to adapt to even one thing, and then he just switches it right when he feels like you've caught up. And if you really look at what he's doing, it's not even that complex, but it's just repeated over and over, and you have to try to figure it out. It's almost like a platformer or something like that, or like a boss battle. And by the time you figured it out, it changes to like phase 2, you know, it's like Elden Ring. So, you know, I think that's really what makes Acola so good and so feared in this game, and why he's likely going to be number 1 on the next ranking season. But be sure to tell me if you guys agree down in the comments below, and please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and thank you.